Multipurpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65. Co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate, high-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others. Special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills.
Hello. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you're all doing well. I am so excited to be here today for the Youth Development Dialogue and the launch of the Youth Barometer report, the first of its kind in Ghana. And we are so excited to be here. And I'm sure you are excited as well. And today, we're going to have the report launch, but we're also going to have a deep dive into the report to know exactly what the results are, what the findings are, and what we are taking away from here. I am your host today. My name is Eric Safro. I am a team lead at YOTA. I'm not here alone. I'm here with an astute young lady who is also a youth researcher and a young leader as well. Her name is Zakari Raha. Please put your hands together for my co-host.
Thank you so much. Hello, good morning, everyone. That was a brief introduction. You are all warmly welcome to the launch of the Ghana Youth Barometer report. My name is Raha Zakaria, a member of the Voices of Youth Coalition. And as YOTA being a youth-led organization, they have given us the platform to explore our talent. And I'm here to co-MC with Eric. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Put your hands together for her. So, Raha, what are you expecting today with the launch and then the youth dialogue that we're going to have today?
All right. As a youth researcher, I expect all of us here to pay attention to all the details in the report. We have young people express their views about their future. So as we are here, we don't have to perceive for young people. We have to listen to their voices. And this is exactly what we are going to see today. We are going to hear from our lead researchers as well and our youth researchers so that they will share their journey with us during the research. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So as the audience here in the studio and even audience online, I just want to let you know that we are live on all our social media pages. So when you go to YOTA Rising on Facebook, YouTube, on X and Instagram, you find us there. And so please make your way online and join the conversation. We want to interact and engage here and also online. So please put your comments, your questions across, and we're good to go. We don't want to waste much time as we go on. We would like to invite the Executive Director of Youth Opportunity and Transformation in Africa, in the person of Mr. Emmanuel Eduji. Kindly put your hands together for Mr. Emmanuel Eduji as he comes on stage. While we're waiting for Mr. Eduji to come on stage, YOTA has celebrated 20 years of existence, and we've been at the forefront of youth development and policy development as well. And our work has gone through all the corners of Ghana. Since Emmanuel is here, I'll just let him do the rest. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Hello. Welcome, everyone, to our special day. Today marks a special occasion for YOTA because we're seeking to escalate something really great and transformative about the youth sector in Ghana. Let me first start by thanking all our guests. We have several very important guests with us, and we don't have a lot of time to mention, but a lot of them will be speaking and making contribution. I truly, on behalf of YOTA, want to thank you. Just want to also single out our Yes Pact champion, Nana Ewua from the Ministry of Education. Thank you so much for coming. Please, thank you. So we're here to outdoor some work that young people of the Voices of Youth Coalition have done, I would say in the last 7 months, thereabout, going to the field, speaking to young people, gathering data, both quantitative and qualitative, analyzing that themselves and putting it together into what we now call the Ghana Youth Barometer. It's a new level in youth-based or evidence-based youth advocacy. Evidence-based youth advocacy. As many of you will know, YOTA has been blazing the trail, showing the way when it comes to evidence-based advocacy in Ghana. Our 2012 Ghana Youth Manifesto, a copy of which I ensured that we have, was the first ever attempt to bring young people's voices in a more concrete way onto the policy sphere. As you know, young people have already been doing a lot in Ghana's history. If you do the political history of activism in Ghana, you will notice that student leaders, student groups have been part even of our independent struggle. So it's not new that young people have been engaged in development in Ghana. What was new is what we call evidence-based advocacy, where young people actually come to the table with some well-researched information to support their advocacy. That was new. And that was what the Ghana Youth Manifesto has done in showing the way. Today, I've counted not less than, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 youth manifestos since 2012. In fact, this year alone, I've seen at least 2, and there's a gentleman here I just met outside who has told me about their own effort with our sister colleagues in an organization called FOSDA that have done a similar work. So evidence advocacy means that you come to the table with the opportunity to support your call to action with some research, with some evidence. You're just not talking. In 2016, we took that to another level. Those of you who are familiar with the National Youth Policy regime in Ghana, we had a very long gap when there was no youth policy. So governments and stakeholders were moving in different directions with their activities and programs because there was no policy framework. But we were lucky, finally, I believe that must be 2010, to have the first youth policy. And then we needed a review. A policy is not great if there are no frequent reviews to track how well we are performing. And I'm happy to say that in 2016, we again brought the Voices of Youth together to review that policy and come up with what we call the People's National Youth Policy. Our voices for a youth-inclusive Ghanaian society. This was crowdsourced through social media, through community debates, through youth forums, and different kinds of engagements at the community level all the way up to national. And so we're not new to doing evidence-based advocacy. What is new now is that we're no longer only having the youth alone in that evidence building. We now also have the other key stakeholders. So the Ghana Youth Barometer you will be seeing today is an effort of a collective nature. The youth researchers have worked with key stakeholders from institutions of government that are relevant to the youth sector, research firms. In fact, very soon you will meet 2 lead researchers who are academics in their own capacity, but then manage to build a participatory research approach that included a lot of you here who were part of that data collection, analyzing, and also report writing. So it's new. I think this is going to do, given that once we show the way, a lot more youth groups are able to join in. I think we're going to have, say, in the next decade, a stronger youth sector led by young people themselves who are able to voice their views and perspectives in a more concrete way. And if the politicians or policymakers says, where's your evidence? You have it at hand already. And so, thank you. And so, this is why we are here today. And I want to thank all the youth researchers and the technical researchers who have been part of this process. We are very grateful to you. I want to end by just saying that we've managed to make today's meeting a little bit smaller so that we can focus our financial resources on promoting the outcome of this work to the world. So through digital platforms and so on. You know, these things are expensive. So feel free, it's interactive, it's a small group, it's a small gathering, but it's of a national nature. Live on several of our social media platforms, and I encourage you to share as well. By the end of the day, I believe we'll all have both soft and hard copies of the Ghana Youth Barometer to take to your youth groups and to your organizations. And the materials that I showed a few minutes ago are on our website. I don't know if the digital team behind will be able to show, but it's yotaweb.org. And if you go to the publications section, you'll be able to download these materials. And I think before we close, the Ghana Youth Barometer will also be live on the site once we've had the pleasure of our guest launching it. So on behalf of YOTA and on behalf of all the Voices of Youth members, I welcome you to a short but very impactful and promising event. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks.
Oh, put your hands together for Mr. Emmanuel Eduji. That's exciting. Exciting to see that the work that YOTA does is not just putting out perceptions, but having evidence-based. So having the evidence to back everything that we want to do. Zachary, isn't that...
Yeah, that was wonderful. And keep it. It's not working. So, as Emmanuel said, before we leave here, we are all going to have a copy of the Youth Barometer report, pardon me. So, when we go back, we are supposed to read and understand the perception about young people in terms of their future aspirations and what they think about education and other issues as well.
So, we do the anthem? So, we have usually we will never go for any event at YOTA without singing the National Youth Anthem. So can I get everyone who is youth and anyone who is youth at heart, anyone that loves young people to be outstanding so we can do the National Youth Anthem.
I guess we all know the National Youth Anthem because when we were coming, someone messed up. So I guess after we leave here, the person will be able to learn the lyrics very well. So, ready, 2, 3, 1. Are we ready? 2, 3, 1, let's go. Please wait.
We can't hear you well, please. We want to have
Let's wait.
Can you please pause the song? Rise, Ghana youth, for your country. The nation demands your devotion.
Let us all unite.
Hold on. So that we can sync with our online guests. You know, we don't want to be very selfish, so we want to take it again. They will give us the song and we will sing. Please don't stand. This is a youthful anthem. So hold on and listen to the song. And I want you to shout so that the breakfast and everything can work.
Number one, are in the building. Ready? Let's be getting ready.
Rise, Ghana youth. I can't hear you. With some action, Let us all unite to uphold her and make her great and strong. We are all involved. We are all involved. We are all involved in building.
We are all.
We are all. Where are the bases? We are all involved.
We are all involved in building a motherland.
Involved. I can't tell your voices, so. We are all
Involved in building a motherland. Arise, Ghana youth, for your country. Do we know the next stanza? It looks like we are all familiar with the first stanza. So when we get to the next one, I guess the whole or half of the hall will be silent. We should have learned this
We
thing
are
before
all.
coming here.
We are all.
Involved.
We are all.
We are all.
We are all.
Involved.
We are all
We are all
involved
in building a motherland. We are all.
We are all.
Faithfulness, I can't hear you.
We are all. We are all involved in building a motherland. We are all. We are all.
We are all involved. We are all involved in building a motherland.
I think we've
Thank
done
you,
so
thank you
well.
so
Thank
much.
you so well.
Thank
Put your
you.
hands together for yourselves. What I'll do is that I'm going to report to the NYA that we don't know how to sing the second stanza. So, all right. Okay. So it is time to really delve deep into the Youth Barometer report. What we have is that we had two astute lecturers, one from University of Ghana, the other from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, lead the research on the Youth Barometer. And so we're going to get them on stage to really give us high-level summary, but delve deep into what the Youth Barometer report says, and then what the findings are, and what the recommendations are for in the Youth Barometer report. And as they come to present, I want you to really pay attention, because there will be time for moderated discussions where we'll all engage in the report findings as well. So please pay attention as they come. Shall we put our hands together for our lead researchers, Dr. Emmanuel Kumi and Dr. Thomas Yeboah. Please put your hands together for them.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Okay, so we are here to give a presentation of our research work. And to help do that, I'll call on my friend who will lead us through. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. And good morning. Thank you for having us. And what I'm going to do is to present a very high-level summary of the Youth Barometer research, which was conducted by the youth researchers here with us, providing some technical lead as well, Emmanuel and myself. And for my presentation this morning, this is the outline. So there will be some brief intro, the method, objectives, the research question, and also the key finding and what we feel or we think that are the key policy messages emerging from the work that we did. So by way of introduction, I believe that all of us are very aware that the COVID-19 pandemic, which came very unaware. We were all not aware of how COVID was coming, right? And its effect has run through all aspects of society. So particularly in terms of employment and particularly in terms of access to social services like education. COVID had a serious implications on the lives of people. And young people in particular have been, impacted more by the pandemic because of their position in society, particularly when it comes to, their access to resources and life opportunities. So when we look at the impact of the COVID, it was particularly severe for young people who are always at the lower end of our society. So YOTA launched what they call the Youth on Board project in 2022, just to try and enhance the voices of young people in policy making and advocacy in and around young people and things that concern them, their education, their employment, and their aspiration. And the project's goal is to increase attention and investment in critical issues that relates to access to and quality of education. So the overall purpose of the Youth Barometer research was to explore how young people perceive their education and how they feel confident about their future. So the education that young people are having, right? How do they perceive it? And then also, how confident are they about the future? And the specific objective, I think, as I have mentioned earlier, YOTA wants to amplify the voices of young people when it comes to policy making around issues that affect them, particularly as we are coming out of COVID and trying to adjust our lives to the effects of the pandemic. The research was guided by very specific research questions. And I think we had about 6 of them, as you can see on the screen. The first had to do with young people's perception of the current education system, which many of them have gone through or were in the process of going through themselves, and issues with access. So we wanted to explore their perceptions around the educational system and also access to education. Another key question was their perceptions of the relationship between their education and the future that they themselves aspire for. And then we also wanted to know the views of the youth. So based on their current experiences with the youth, what do they think might be some changes that are required, in the current system of education that they were experiencing? And then the fourth research question was to explore their views regarding their participation or their involvement in decision-making concerning education and other aspects of their lives. And then the fifth one was to examine their aspiration. So we were interested in asking questions about young people's aspirations. And then the last one has to do with the extent to which they are prepared and confident about their future. Methodology-wise, we adopted a mixed method research where, both qualitative and quantitative data were collected. And it was done the concurrent. So the concurrent talks about the fact that the quantitative and the qualitative data were both collected at the same time. And in terms of the sample size, the research was designed to be nationally representative. So if you look at the current Ghana Statistical Service population and housing census, the youth population, which is defined by our national youth policy as young people between the ages of 15 and 35, they are around 11.7 million. And if you apply the statistical formula, which I don't want to bore you with the formula and how it is done, we yielded a sample of around 1,639 or 1,700 roughly. So our minimum sample size to ensure nationally representative was just around 1,600. But when we did the field work, a lot of young people wanted to participate. So we gave those young people the chance. So in the end, we had a sample of 1,940 across some 32 district, municipal, and the metropolitan assembly in Ghana. So that was for the quantitative component. And for the qualitative component, we did 4 focus group discussions, and then we also conducted 48 in-depth interviews with both males and females. And I must commend all the youth researchers who are here. They did the data collection under our guidance. So the data collection happened between last year, December, and then January 2024 this year. And then for the quantitative, the survey questionnaire was the main data collection tool. And then the focus group and then interview guides, some kind of schedules to elicit young people's perspective was used for the qualitative. And obviously with any research, ethics is very important. We made sure that participation was voluntary. Young people had a choice to participate. In fact, we got reports from the field, some young people indicating that they don't want to be involved in this kind of exercise. We respected that position of the young people in terms of data collection because they have the right to choose to participate. Informed consent and other ethical issues like confidentiality, anonymity was all ensured during the data collection. In terms of the analysis, we synthesized both the quant and the qualitative data. So a kind of integration of bringing both the quant data and the qualitative data together. But the quant data was analyzed using descriptive statistics and the chi-square test of association. And then the qualitative was the thematic and discourse analysis in terms of how young people frame their views about the educational system. So these are the key findings. I think I have mentioned this already, but just to say that we had equal numbers of young women and young men participating in the study, 970 young men, 970 young women. In terms of their educational level, the majority of the young people indicated, yes, they've ever been to school. And as you can see, over 95% of them have ever been to school, which is a very good thing, especially with the fact that, education is very important when it comes to socioeconomic advancement. And this is the breakdown of the educational attainment. Majority of them were having secondary school education. Literacy rate was high, so when we asked them if they could read and write in English or any other language, the vast majority indicated yes, both for urban young people and rural young people. But then, if you check the employment status, we found out that at the time of the field, when we asked them about whether they were employed, you see that the vast majority are saying that they were not in employment. If you look at it by sex, and also if you look at it by place of residence, which is the urban and rural. And then unemployment was highest among the young people between the ages of 15 and 25 years when you do further analysis of the data. And those with secondary school education, the unemployment rate was higher among them. It's possible that because we sampled majority of young people between those who were, had secondary school education, that potentially explains why the unemployment rate is higher for those with secondary school education. These are the 4 top regions where the unemployment rate is high. Greater Accra, Ashanti, and Eastern, and Central as well. In terms of their perceptions of the education system, we got a very mixed view. And the majority of the young people were saying that the educational system is retrogressing, whilst a good number of them also said that it was progressing. And qualitatively, when we were trying to tease out why they were having these views, those who said it was retrogressing, their emphasis was on this chew and pour system, which I know almost all of us here have heard of it when you go to school. the Chiu and Paul, saying that the education is not practical enough. But others also thought that the education system is progressing because there's been expansion in access to education for young people. Yeah, so these are those who indicated the fact that the qualitative quotes, which I don't want to go through because of time. And in terms of their perception still around the educational system, many disagree with the statement that we pose to them that young men and young women from rural and urban areas have equal opportunities for education. And they emphasize that many of them disagreed because they said that access and the quality of education, if you compare the rural to the urban, there is that disparity when it comes to access and at the same time, the quality that is being given. In terms of the perceived barriers, the top 3 barriers that the young people alluded to, which affected access, was the higher cost of education, despite the fact that education right from basic school, nursery, all the way to senior high school is free. Some young people still thought that higher cost of education. And many were alluding to the other costs associated with education, not just because of school fees, but other complementary costs that you need to bear when it comes to your education. And then limited access to financial resources, which their parents do not have. And then also there was also the lack of family support, which young people alluded to as one of the key barriers. And you see the gender and then the place of residence differences among the youth. So qualitatively, 2 key themes emerge: access to financial resources, and then also young people talking about having lack of social connections to get admission to schools, especially at the tertiary level. Young people perceive that to be a problem when it comes to their access to education. So we asked them, what then do they think are some changes that might be required? And you can see that when we pose certain statements, the vast majority agree to these statements, that the education system should focus on developing young people's skills. And all the statements, you can see the vast majority of the young people agreed with these assertions. Interestingly, when you remember that some of them said the education system is retrogressing, but then when we ask them in terms of how the education system has prepared them, you have very good proportion agreeing or strongly agreeing that the education system has prepared them for their future. And these are some qualitative views about how they indicated their perceptions of how the education system has prepared them for their future. And the report has all the quotations and all the information there. In terms of their optimism, many of the young people are optimistic that they can succeed in the future, or they are optimistic about the future. Despite all the challenges that they mentioned, the vast majority are saying that they are optimistic about the future, which gives us a sense of opportunity to leverage on this optimism, because young people are not giving up. They are very enthusiastic about their own future. And these are the factors that the young people indicated will influence their decision concerning their future. And in the vast majority, you see that many of them are agreeing to the factor as very important or important. The financial resources or financial support for the education, the expected salary of the job, and all the other indicators there. You see that they are rating it very important and at the same time important. In terms of youth participation, many of them agree that they have the right to participate in decision-making that concerns their life. But then when you ask them about their involvement, you see that their involvement in decision-making is relatively low when it comes to their participation, especially in education policies and education strategies and interventions that are designed. I quite remember there was some of the young people making the claim that when the free SHS was coming on, they didn't have any opportunity to contribute. They alluded to the free SHS as a very good policy, but then they felt that their views were not consulted. In terms of their aspirations, For the aspiration, we looked at two main aspirations. Aspirations around education and aspirations around employment. But for education, you see that the vast majority will be interested in technical and vocational training, 56.1% of the young people. And then also you have, almost half of them, 48, saying that they will be interested in pursuing higher levels of education. But then the financial constraint was something that they alluded to, which I talked about earlier. But their aspiration is that they want to further their education. They don't want to be where they are. They are not comfortable with the education that they've acquired. They want to move higher. But when we were asking them about education and how they want to pursue, many were indicating that they wanted to travel abroad. They knew very well of the financial implication, but some indicated that they would want to explore scholarship opportunities. And for those who wanted to do formal education, they talked about pursuing master's degree and PhD. And that was very fascinating for me, that young people are really aspiring higher in terms of their education. They just don't want to end up with secondary school or first degree education. They know the importance of education, especially when it comes to competition in the labor market. So for them to aspire that higher, that gives us an opportunity to leverage on their aspiration. And you can see the quotation here, one young man, a female, indicating that he wants to pursue masters and a PhD before as part of her educational aspiration. For employment, many were looking at getting employment both in the formal and informal sector. So they want to combine employment. So having multiple streams of livelihood or income earning opportunity. So that is what, in our language, in the academic literature, we talked about what we call side hustling. So you are doing a formal work, and at the same time, you are doing something informal just to complement your income. And it's interesting that young people are not viewing employment from a single source. They want to have multiple jobs or multiple income earning potential. But when we ask them around the kind who they want to work for, many of them want to be self-employed, which is very interesting. Is it that young people are now becoming real with the fact that available opportunities for somebody employing them is a problem, or that they want to be entrepreneurs themselves, knowing all the difficulties associated with running a business yourself? But it's fascinating to know that many of them are indicating the fact that they want to be self-employed. Previous studies that had been done indicated that many of them were thinking about formal employment, because it's the formal employment that all the decent and all the ILO's, decent work, or Mastercard's dignified and fulfilling work indicators are found. Secured work, good salary, pension, and all that. But with self-employment, unless you yourself as a young person, you create these for yourself. But then many of them aspire that they want to work for themselves. And I've been thinking, is it that the jobs are not there, especially in the formal sector, or they are coming to terms with reality that somebody may not have to employ them, they themselves have to employ them? That is something we want to hear your views on. In terms of the barriers, financial and social, lack of social connection seems to run through our data that we collected when it comes to access to education, and then in terms of their aspiration, educational aspiration, and then also when it comes to their employment aspiration. Many of them spoke about finance, and lack of social networks. Many of them indicated that they are somewhat prepared. They weren't so sure about the future, but many of them saying that they are somewhat prepared for the future, both the male and the female. And when we ask them what they would need to be able to, advance their lives in the most advantageous ways, you see that many of them are talking about financial support, skills training, networking, and then education. We had a tall list, but these are the very prominent ones that came from the study. So these are the things young people need when it comes to, helping them to advance or prepare for the future. So based on all these, findings, together with more deeper findings in the report, these were just a scheme of few top highlights that I give. But we have some policy messages for, government, for donors, and also for youth-led civil society. What we are seeing is that, making the educational curriculum practical, and that is something that is already being done. But what we need to do also as a country is to strengthen teachers, capacity to be able to, the soft skills training, or if we want to include these practical elements in our educational system, it means that the facilitators or the teachers who would have to teach this will need to be well equipped. And then they need to address the high cost of education, not just school fees. We've done very well as a country when it comes to school fees, but the other aspects of cost that are associated with education is a challenge. And then increasing public investment in basic school education. The government is doing so well when it comes to, infrastructure, but then a lot of rural areas are still lacking behind. And then also an environment, providing that enabling environment. Many of them want to be self-employed entrepreneurs, but they need that entrepreneurial drive cannot be sustained if there isn't a good climate or an atmosphere for such, entrepreneurial drive to thrive. For example, if you are an entrepreneur and you require power to work, if power is not there, I always say that social goods are very difficult for any individual to, produce them. It is the social matter, who is the government, who needs to make available these social goods. Soft skills training, and then strengthening TVET, because young people talked about they want to go into technical, they aspire to have technical and vocational education. We also talked about, for donors, we are saying that donors need to make, incorporating youth voices in any policy a key funding requirement for whether government or youth civil society, so that if YOTA is doing any work that involves, education or young people, and they are getting funding from any donor needs to make it clear and a key that before you can get this funding or you can get this support, youth voices has to be factored in your policy or strategy. And then also providing support to enhance and strengthening the youth parliament. Young people spoke about the existence of youth parliament, but they were not so vibrant across all the country. But this platform provide opportunities for young people to make their views heard. But you realize that across the country, these youth parliaments are not functioning effectively. So we are encouraging donors and development partners to strengthen these youth parliaments so that they can become a good platform for young people to air their views. A lot of young people are not even aware of these, youth parliaments across the country. And then for youth-led civil society, a forum that will bring young people and, employers together, because they spoke about networking. They want to network with employers and have access to, different skills that they will need for their future. And then also advocacy effort, which a lot of civil society are doing well, strengthening that, and then building a national coalition of CSOs in youth development. YOTA is doing very well when it comes to this space, but more needs to be done. And then providing support in mobilizing young people, from the National Youth Federation, which gives young people the space and voice for policy making. Thank you very much, and I'm grateful for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumi. I guess we heard what he presented, and we may have questions to ask at the end. Next on our list, we are going to invite some of our youth researchers to share their journey during their youth research process. I'll call on Ramatu and Nelson, who will be joined by all other youth researchers on stage.
So can we have all the youth researchers come on stage? Please put your hands together for the youth researchers. So these are the youth researchers who were involved in collecting data across the country and involved with the analysis as well. Oh, do that better for them. So, yes, for 5 minutes each, we'll let Rama is here. Rama, your turn.
Hi, good morning, everybody. And it's really exciting having each and every individual here to mark this historic event. Since this is the first of its kind, this is happening, the Ghana Youth Barometer. I am Rama Tusalifu and visually impaired. I've journeyed with Yota from Youth on Board, and we journeyed through to have this done, and I was a key member in this research. On the field, as Yota operate based on the principle of leave no one behind, I went to the field to also gather the data. And in my journey, I realized that Ghana as a country, a lot needs to be done. Something is done, but it's still little. In the process of collecting the data, I realized that people still do not have the adequate knowledge when it comes to persons with disability. So I give an example. Get to a place, somebody has a person with a disability. When I inquired, the denigrating word that was used was this person. The person was actually an autistic lady. But you realize that she was not giving much attention growing up. Hence, she has tended to be somebody, a burden to the society, which shouldn't be the case. And so that is a gap. Again, you realize that in my journey, somebody would say, pass a comment like, this lady, you can't see, but why wouldn't you sit in the house and rest? Why are you going up and down? What is it about? So till you speak to the person, then the person knows that, this person is not how I think. And so I realized that much education needs to be done, as Yota has already started. And I know a lot of the organizations are doing, but we will make a clearing call to each and every individual, organization, the government institutions, to see to it that all persons are involved. Every voice matters. As the Sustainable Development Goal 4 states that there should be quality and inclusive education where everybody matters, because in this report, we realize that we are looking forward to seeing our education being progressive. And if it will be progressive, it has to be progressive, leaving no one behind. And the inclusive education policy as we have as a country, we should make a deliberate effort to call on the government, including all other stakeholders, to see to the proper implementation of that policy. Because for me, I see this policy to be there on paper, but in practice, it's not really being looked into. And so in my journey with the Ghana Youth Barometer, I'm making a clearing call to all who matters to make sure that education gets to the doorsteps of each and every individual, whether able or disabled. Thank you.
Today is a complete honor for me because, let's face it, a few years ago, my presence on this stage was very unlikely. In 2019, when I was left with 1 year to complete my bachelor's education, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life and had no idea how my theoretically based engineering program was going to help me do that. So one day, as I was roaming aimlessly on campus, I saw a young man in an African print conducting interviews. I had no idea where he was from or who he was, but as long as I heard that the program was about impacting skills to young people, I jumped in. And this young man was Eric from Yota. Through him and the Ford Foundation, I had the opportunity of joining the impactful Youth Leadership for Social Change program. And with the help of him and the Ford Foundation, it is from there that I learned the ability to lead, regardless of who is listening to me. It is from here that I learned the ability to lead rather than living in the shadows of others. And just as I thought I had seen it all, in 2021, I was able to jump into another Yota program, which is the Youth on Board program, a program that engenders youth voices in Ghana's educational response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Through this program, I met another young man who initially looked like a pop star to me due to his looks, he turned out to be one of the most impactful youth trainers I've ever met. And this young man is Nathan from Yota. It is from him I learned life-changing 21st century skills such as creativity and innovation that I never got the opportunity to learn in the classroom. And just last year, whilst working as a youth researcher in the Ghana Youth Barometer, it all came down to me. In the Bono East regional capital of Techimai, I met a young lady called Barikisu. And just as I interviewed her, I listened to her share how frustrating she was. Even though she has completed school about 6 years ago, she still struggled to be able to enter into the job market. She had no idea how her education connects to the job market. Barikisu's story represents the larger educational narrative of the over 1,000 people in Ghana. And ladies and gentlemen, friends, senior comrades and countrymen, this is a clarion call. I say to you today that the youth may be 40% of Ghana's population, but we are 100% of Ghana's future. I call on all NGOs, government, local and civil society organizations, local NGOs, political parties, religious bodies, Fantis, Ashantis, Dagombes, men, women, old, young, everybody, that we have a very big work to do. I say to you today that if we come together as one people, if we put all our differences together aside, devoid of our famous individualism and all our political differences, I have no doubt that we can be able to create a very strong future for future generations and change the educational narrative to make it represent what the job market really seeks for. I believe that when we come together as one people, we can provide jobs for the jobless, hope for the hopeless, and this country shall reclaim its promise, and out of this long period of educational crisis, a brighter day will come. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much for the passion with which you spoke, Nelson, and thank you, Rama, as well. So just to give a bit of context for the Youth Barometer report, because it's about young people, it's young people who did the research. So we had 2 representatives from each region, each of the 16 regions in Ghana, who went out and spoke with fellow youth to gather the data. And also to make it more authentic, we had over 13 reviewers. We have some of our reviewers here. Professor Tufuo, who is our board chair, is not here. We had Dr. Sylvia Esther Jan, Prof. Isaac Kofi Baini from University of Ghana, Dr. Nana Efriye, Dr. Nash, as we usually call them, is Dr. Nashiruddin Mumuni from UDS. We have Mona Idrisu from ASSET. We had Wumbe Dokrugu from Oxfam, Divine Pair from EduWatch. We had Mr. Jerry Sam from Pen Plus Byte, Dr. James Adam, who is here, who will be on our panel also from Associates for Change. We had other international reviewers like Camilla Nelson Englist, and then we had from CDD, we have Vera Addo, who is also a youth and an advocate as well. And so with a round of applause, I would like us to really appreciate the youth researchers, our technical reviewers as well. Please, you can take your seats as they clap for you. Well done for the work that you have done. This is the first series focusing on education. We're looking at the education sector as an issue. It's very interesting, right, to know that the young people feel that a lot has to be done. And they also have the aspiration, and so they want to go forward. And I am very thrilled about the fact that a few years ago, we're looking at white-collar jobs, and now we're looking at blue-collar jobs. We want to do side hustles. We want to change the narrative. And it goes back to what Emmanuel was saying about 10 years to come, the landscape will change. And I truly believe that. Do you believe that?
Yes, I do. Because as a youth researcher, one of the people I met was sharing his own experience growing up when he was enrolled to learn a vocational skill. So he has taken it to teach his children to also have a skill to learn. He shared that he has friends who have PhDs who access his services, and he makes money from his own friends. So if we are all able to have a skill that we can be able to support our families, create employment, and also be able to empower people in our societies, I think TVET will be a best option for us. And just recently in Tamale, we had students from the Dabokwa Technical School. They have built a tricycle, and it's actually on the streets of Tamale. Please, young people have the aspirations to create employment. When you see the tricycle, you wouldn't believe it is manufactured in Ghana. So such individuals with talent, when they are given the support, the necessary funding, Ghana will go a long way to also export some of these things that they manufacture. And together, they are going to create employment, and Ghana will move away from the unemployment to employment. So let's support young people. We have aspirations, we have the skills, we have the talents. We need the space, we need the platforms and the fundings to exhibit our talents.
Thank you very much. Before we have a short break so that we can set the stage for the panel discussion, I'd like to recognize some few dignitaries who are in our midst. You are all our special guests. As youth, everybody is a special guest. We have Nana Bafwewa. I'm sure he was introduced, but I want to officially introduce him. Nana Bafwewa, who is Director Pre-Tertiary from Ministry of Education. Nana, can you please wave for us? Thank you very much, Nana Bafwewa. We also have a few of YOTA's board members here. YOTA is a youth organization, so you would expect that our youth also would be, our board members would be youthful. And so we have Manyea, who is a youth board member for YOTA. Please wave for us as well. We have John. Where's John? Okay, John has stepped out. Okay, when they come, we will introduce them to you. We also have in our midst Dr. Nana Efriye, who was a reviewer. Doc, please wait for us. Thank you very much. We have my own friend and sister, Verado from CDD. Please wait for us. Vera, Nana, and the others I will introduce from EduWatch and Asset are all part of what we call the Youth Employment and Skills chapter of the Pan-African Coalition for Transformation, the YES Pact, which seeks to support policy development. So looking at the policy continuum and then support policy development with policy makers as well. And so we have Deborah in our midst. Deborah, can you please wait for us? From Asset as well. We'll do more introductions as we go on, but for now, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll set the stage for the panel discussion. Thank you very much and continue to enjoy yourself.
The all-new Multipurpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65, co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate, high-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others, special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills, life skills, and financial literacy for individuals and organizations. The Skills Hub is open to every young person who wants to land their dream jobs or contracts. It's time to take charge of your future. Now visit the Skills Hub at Toyota Building at American House Traffic Lights on the Labar-Leshi Road, East Lagos. The all-new Multipurpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65. Co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate. High-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others. Special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills, life skills, and financial literacy for individuals and organizations. The Skills Hub is open to every young person who wants to land their dream jobs or contracts. It's time to take charge of your future. Now visit the Skills Hub at Toyota Building at American House Traffic Lights on the Labarleshi Road, East Lagos. The all-new Multipurpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65. Co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate. High-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others. Special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills, life skills, and financial literacy for individuals and organizations. The Skills Hub is open to every young person who wants to land their dream jobs or contracts. It's time to take charge of your future. Now visit the Skills Hub at Toyota Building at American House Traffic Lights on the Labarleshi Road, East Lagos. The all-new Multipurpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65. Co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate. High-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others. Special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills, life skills, and financial literacy for individuals and organizations. The Skills Hub is open to every young person who wants to land their dream jobs or contracts. It's time to take charge of your future. Now visit the Skills Hub at Toyota Building at American House Traffic Lights on the Labarleshi Road, East Lagos. The all-new Multipurpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65, co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate, high-speed internet cafe, a copy center and others, special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills, life skills, and financial literacy for individuals and organizations. The Skills Hub is open to every young person who wants to land their dream jobs or contracts. It's time to take charge of your future. Now visit the Skills Hub at Toyota Building at American House Traffic Lights on the Labaleshe Road, East Lagos. The all-new multi-purpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65, co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate, high-speed internet cafe, a copy center and others, special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills, life skills, and financial literacy for individuals and organizations. The Skills Hub is open to every young person who wants to land their dream jobs or contracts. It's time to take charge of your future. Now visit the Skills Hub at Toyota Building at American House Traffic Lights on the Labaleshe Road, East Lagos. The all-new multi-purpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65, co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate, high-speed internet cafe, a copy center and others.
All right there. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sure that you are pretty excited from what we have seen so far in terms of the Youth Barometer and the dictates. And I would like to encourage all of us to go online. Please go on Facebook now. Yota page, we are streaming live. And for the young people, our space is social media. And so I want us to take advantage of that. And if you are also here, please get your phones quickly. Just get to Facebook. Yota is streaming live. And then make sure that you share the live stream so that other young people in other parts of the world can also get to be a part of this conversation. Yes, the focus is on Ghana, but what we also do know that is not limited to us alone. The challenges that we are facing is not just in Ghana. There are other parts of Africa that also have to deal with it. My name is Joshua Kojo Mensah, and fortunately, I'm privileged to be the one to moderate this session. I work with GH1 Television here in Accra as part of the EIB network. And so let me quickly introduce my panelist. It's quite a huge panel, and it tells you the importance that we attach to the barometer and then what we need to do. So to my immediate left, I have Doreen Apia Num. She is from the Voices of Youth Coalition. She's been on the project, the Youth Barometer project, and Doreen will be sharing some insights with us. And I'm privileged because she's very close to me, and then the rest are very far from me. And for those of you who might start getting at me with gender balance and Please, we beg you, forgive us for this one. So right after him, we have Dr. Thomas Yeboah. He is one of the lead researchers on this project. And next to him is Dr. Emmanuel Kumi. He has given us an overview of the project. We saw him deliver the overview beautifully. And we also have one of the men that I'm very careful about his name. You see, he's in smoke, and he has already issued warnings to me. So my life is under threat in one way or the other if I get it wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Dr. James Natsia Adam. He is a researcher with a passion for education, and his focus primarily has to do with school dropouts and how to reintegrate students back in school. And so this focus of the Youth Barometer on education would have a lot to discuss with him as well. And then last but not least is one of the youth researchers on the project, John Takura. He's also joined us. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to get into the conversation. I'm going to start from my far left with you, John, because you were on the field. Yes. You spoke to young people. You sampled their responses to very key issues. What would you say stood out for you in terms of education and access? What did the young people tell you that for you, prior to getting into this particular project, you didn't think it was a big deal?
Okay, thank you very much. With education and how the youth perceives the current education system in Ghana, a good number of them shared their view that the education system was retrogressing. Up to 42.9% of the youth said it was retrogressing because it was more theoretically inclined than practice. And then with access to education, they expressed that those in urban areas had better access to education than those in rural areas.
So these ones stood out for you. But let me come to you, Dr. Thomas Yeboah. In terms of education being retrogressive, I listened to Dr. Kumi, and he mentioned that in as much as the system or the youth believed that it was retrogressive, they said it prepared them for the future. I don't get it.
Yes, sir.
Because if something is retrogressive, am I lying? I'm not lying. If it's retrogressive, how is it preparing you for the future you're looking for?
Just a quick clarification.
Right.
This is Dr. Kumi.
Yes. Oh, you're
I am your boy.
You are your boy.
I gave the presentation. When you were introducing, I saw that
yes,
a bit of a mix-up.
And we'll blame the female MC because she called you Kumi.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
right.
so I'm not sure if...
So please, let me go to Dr. Yeboah. Since we've not heard it, Dr. Kumi, the devil is a liar. So Dr. Kumi, that is what Dr. Yeboah was telling us, that youth believe that the system is retrogressive, yet it prepares them. How?
Yes, so if you look at our research work, we were looking at views of young people. And then as we saw, for most of these youths, they indicated that in terms of our way of teaching, our own educational system itself is retrogressing. But then also, we also had a large portion of them who were saying that it has helped them. And we think that this is as a result, especially of the people who said that for the past years, there has been some form of improvement. So, for instance, we spoke to a few people who indicated to us that as a result of the free senior high school, most of them are now able to be in school. And for such people, it gives them a great form of opportunity. So it's as a result of that why some of them said that indeed it has really prepare them for the future.
So, in essence, without the access, perhaps they wouldn't have had any future being prepared for them as a result.
Sure.
Interesting. So, let me come to you, Dr. Natia James, because you have worked sometimes even in the rural settings. And from the Barometer, one of the things that we found out was the fact that there used to be a disconnect, or there is a disconnect between urban education and rural education in terms of infrastructure and the quality. And so you realize that in as much as we are using the same curriculum or syllabus nationwide, the disparity is still there. How worrying of a situation is that?
Right. Thank you so much for this question. Yes, it is true that there is inequity in terms of resource distribution between the urban and then the rural. Within the context of Ghana's education system, the distribution of resources like ICT infrastructure and digital tools has not been at equal par. So if you realize from the study, though it shows that there's prospects between the urban and then the rural, the essence of inequality in access to some of these resources persists. And this is worrying, particularly for the girl child who is located in the deprived, extreme rural context. What is significant is that this study by the lead researchers together with the youth researchers have exposed further the disparity between the rural and then the urban. What then is more important for us as stakeholders is to dwell on the research findings and advocate for equal distribution of resources, not only infrastructure like school buildings, not only ICT tools and equipment for the rural poor, but most significantly is encouraging teachers to accept postings to deprived communities. One of the reasons why teachers refuse to accept postings to rural deprived communities is because of the lack of accommodation for teachers, the lack of electricity, and also access to potable drinking water. Due to these forms of inequity in resource distribution, teachers don't accept postings to these areas. So the research findings collaborates and in fact deepens the perceptions that we have about rural education. And for me, one last point is to say that we have to advocate not only by IOTA, but all youth-inclined civil society organizations to use the findings from this study to advocate for rapid investment in rural communities, such as making roads portable, providing access to infrastructure that will motivate and compel teachers to accept postings to these areas. As the study, one of the recommendations by the presenter, Yabua highlighted the need for high investment. So I will also emphasize that the government should send more of the resources to the rural communities to enable the rural communities increase its developmental space so that teachers and students can all have good feel of the educational system that we all aspire to have. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me come to you, Dr. Ibo. I'm sure that most of you are itching to hear from Doreen, because all you can hear is a lot of bass and all of that. But I'll get to Doreen shortly on that. But, Doc, in terms of this inequity that we are talking about and the challenges they present, we've known these for years. Really, have we shown or demonstrated commitment to be able to bridge in the gap in terms of the policies that we've seen that have been churned out by successive governments and even looking at the mitigation plans that have been rolled out over the years? Have we shown or demonstrated enough commitment?
Yeah, thank you. I think successive governments have done well. I mean, currently in my department, we are reviewing the National Rural Development Policy. So Ghana implemented the Rural Development Policy, which outlines the broader framework within which rural development is supposed to be pursued. And if you look at the policy, education is a key component, improving infrastructure, and what he talked about, teachers not accepting posting to rural areas. I think as a country, we've done something, but still a lot more needs to be done. If you compare the investment in, urban and then the rural, because the urban is, so always glorified, or it's always kind of easy go, partners or even investors, when they are coming down, most of them think about the urban. But then as a nation, I think we've done well, but just that a lot still needs to be done. So we need to be, very strategic and be more rural biased if we really want to try and, close that gap. Else, we will still continue to, come here and still talk about, the disparities between. It's been there. If you go to almost every country, there is always that urban-rural difference. Right. But if you really want to be, close that gap, then you have to be rural biased in terms of your development strategy. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to be rural biased so that in my hometown, the guy who goes to school in my hometown can compete with another person who is in the big towns. Now, Doreen, we've been waiting for this for so long. And I'm going to start off with you on something that is quite interesting that has to do with the disconnect between what is being taught in school and the demands of the job market. So we've heard so much in terms of, our syllabus does not reflect what we need in terms of the job market. So graduates are churned out of school every year, yet they are unable to get jobs because industry says you do not have what it takes. So we have heard, but you were part of the team. What did you find out, really, in terms of this phenomenon? Is it just a myth, or there is some reality to it from the research?
Okay, thank you very much. So, even before I answer the question, I'm going to talk about why the name of the report is even called a barometer in the first place. Because when Yota reached out and I saw that we were doing a launch of the Youth Barometer report, I wondered, of all names, how come it's barometer that we are using? And if we take a look at what a barometer is, we know that it's measuring pressure, atmospheric pressure, predicting weather forecast in a way. So it made me wonder, is it that we are trying to predict our future, or how well the youth is adapting to the changing pressures that is happening around us? When you talk about the demands of the job market, like in the report said, that even though young people are so optimistic about their future, they are optimistic because if you don't believe in yourself, there is nothing else you can do.
Who will believe in you?
Exactly. So even if policies and the things that have been laid in place are not supporting you in the way that you want, the best you can do is to hope and then strive for the best. And this also even comes from a personal experience, one as a young person, two as a student, so both as a youth and also in the education sector. Because whatever I am also experiencing reflects the findings that was reported in the Barometer report. In the sense that, yes, you go to school. In preparation for the job market, there are several things other than your degree that is needed. So when you go to the job, you work in a community, you work with other people. How well are you trained in the sense that you have good team working skills? How well can you communicate the things that you need to tell other people? Many jobs demand that you do a presentation. Yes, in the university, you do a presentation. But then, like the report said, most of the people were within the category of senior high school. So let's say if people do not progress to the point where they enter tertiary institutions, where they are going to be taught PowerPoint, how to do presentations in front of a group of people. If you are not able to get to that point, it doesn't mean that you will never acquire that skill. And that skill becomes important if you need to be on the job market. Do you get it? So yes, the education, the knowledge that you need is there. That is why, and in terms of access, there's free senior high school, there is free basic, compulsory basic education, all that. But as we are all in the classroom, what is differentiating us or what is making us ready that if I go to this job, if I walk into this institution, I'll still be fit for what is there? Quite often, a young person finishes school and is looking for employment. They're looking for 3 years experience. I just graduated. How do I have 3 years experience? There are no actual framework for you to say that because there is a policy or the institutions have put this in place that from year one, you need to do an internship. So companies are aware of this. In that way, you are gathering the experience that you need so that when you finish the school, if they ask for a 3-year experience, even though you didn't work full-time, there's something on your certificate or your CV to prove that at least you were at this place for 3 months. So in terms of preparation, that is what is lacking. That the demands of the job market, you not come and they will ask you what is engineering. You not come and they will ask you what tools do you need.
Stage 3,
exactly.
Things that you use in engineering.
Exactly. But then you need to, let's say the engineering company you are in needs to make a proposal, send a proposal out. We need to get a contract. How can you be beneficial to that company? But you lack that skill in pitching. That's where the short.
Well, it's quite interesting, and I'm glad that I have people from the academia there. So I'll be asking them, why? What have we done wrong to them? Because I listened to Nelson, and Nelson said at a point he was walking aimlessly. As an engineering student, he was a theoretical engineer. And I'm wondering, how can you be a theoretical engineer? Because engineering, they are not that they like you should get hands-on. But unfortunately, that disconnect is there. So docs, they are all in the 3 doctors, they are there. So let me start from you, Dr. Kumi. I mean, what is accounting for that disconnect? Is it that we are not aware that these are the demands of the job, for which reason when students are in school, let us fashion the curriculum in a way that supports that once they are out of school, some can even get employed, others have to get employed maybe after a year or 2. Why? What is happening? What have we done?
Yeah, so for that issue, for me, I think for some period now, I have seen some form of improvement. So here, if I talk about my own school at the University of Ghana, we have developed some courses that it is a requirement for our students to do internships. So we score them. And for that, it gives them opportunities for our students to really use that skill. And then also, an issue that we've not talked much about is on how do we give our students soft skills. Because as she said, if you need to do presentations, for instance, as part of our work that we do, you would actually come and you do presentations. But then also, I think an issue here is our students also, in a way, are not prepared to learn also. They actually
the students
want,
in school.
Yes.
They are online, they are watching us.
They want you to give them everything, right? But then as you tell them, do this, they see you as being a difficult guy. He thinks that he's schooled outside, and then he comes and he tells us to do this, which in a way, for me,
right,
I think that it also speaks to why some of these things that we see here. But then also, I'm not here to indicate or to suggest that our students here are lazy. But then...
And they are happy for the disclaimer because they were waiting.
But then also, I think it's about the way we've been raised, we've been trained. Almost every time, and then as all of us saw, we chew it and we go and pour it out. Most of them do not also get opportunities where students will be able to use what has been taught to do things. And that in itself, I think, speaks to all those issues as well.
Okay. Now, Dr. Yeboah, I mean, the chewing and pouring thing, is it not a function of how education is streamlined, such that, because if you are telling me in exam, you are coming to ask me what you have taught, I will learn what you have taught and give it to you and pass. Am I lying? So is it not a result of how the syllabus, the curriculum is fashioned? That's why students are learning in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, you are right. It's the way that our education is structured. And, the fact that we examine people based on, theory. It's like, you need to demonstrate that you understand what the content, but not its application. So if I have come to school as a young person, and our education system is so exam-focused, the moment the student gets to the school, the first thing they are asking for past questions. They want the lecturers past questions,
right,
so that they can know how to answer it. Mm-hmm. So their interest is not necessarily the knowledge that they want to gain for the outside world, but they want to pass. Mm-hmm. But as my colleague said, now some universities, and I'm thinking that it needs to go back to the secondary schools. Yes, the WASSCE is the main, if you pass your WASSCE, you've done well in the WASSCE, in the secondary school. But we need to be very pragmatic to study soft skills training right from secondary school, knowing very well that the labor market, these are the demands of the labor market. So that if a young person does not get opportunity to enter the university, he has acquired, some soft skills right from secondary school. And we need to try and demystify this whole idea that education is about passing your exams. I mean, if you go outside, for some courses that you do, they don't even write exams, but you are still examined. So they can even give you take-home practical essay exams to do. But if we continue to fashion our education in such a way that students can only be examined through sit down, write, it's like, ditto. That one, we will it's still happening. And we may not go where if we don't revise our curriculum in terms of how we examine students. I must also admit that changing curriculum is not a day's job. Before in our universities to really, look at some of the programs and change the curriculum, it has to go to GTech, and it takes a long time. But I think we need to start from somewhere, and then we will be able to,
Okay. Dr. Adam, now earlier, Dr. Kumi talked about the fact that there are opportunities for internships. And I really want to find out, do they really count as job experience? Because I have seen situations where students come for internship and all they do is to buy wache. And that's the truth. Once they get into the offices to do their internships, nobody is really focused on exposing them to the job. It's not about, Charlie, what the intern day? Charlie, buy watch 2 CDs, buy this, buy that. And so how do we make sure internship counts as experience, really?
Thank you so much for this question. This situation is very dicey, but it is important to recognize that internship programs are very relevant. They count as part of the experiences that you enumerate when you are applying for a job. It depends on the individual and the institution that recruits people for internship programs. For instance, if you were recruited in a research firm to do internship, for example, where I work for, we basically give you all the theoretical and practical experience that you require to fit well in the job market. Yes, there are instances that the superior or the boss may send you to do something, but it is also part of the experience because we want to see your ability to account and be transparent. So sending an intern to buy wache may not be wrong. It may have its own pros and cons. One of the pros is that you want to see whether the individual is accountable and transparent, and whether the individual can be trusted. So So those are part of the things
On the
that we
food
take.
journey.
Yes. Those are part of the things we take in evaluating.
So if you're buying 3 sets of wachi, then you know that Charlie, the guy, he be sharp. You know they miss anything. No,
Yes.
this is very tricky. Oh.
Yes, that's why I said
Because
it's
I am
dicey.
trying to, and I'm saying this because when I got out of school, I had to do internship. I was given a job on that first day of internship. And that's how I started my radio career. As an intern, my first day, I was privileged to be given a job because I was asked, what can you do? And not necessarily bring the letter. And I said, I can do everything.
Great.
Because me already, I'm too known. Everybody knows. You understand? But what about the young person that goes to a company to go and intern? And when the person gets there, nobody really has time to take their intern through anything. And it's not necessarily because I'm saying that sometimes they are sent. There are some interns that will tell you that throughout their internship period, all they were doing was buying things for seniors.
Yes, so there is.
And I don't know how accounting comes.
Yes, there's a two-side to the internship programs that we run.
Right.
It is either demand-driven or supply-driven, or what we call the solicited and the unsolicited. In the unsolicited situation, where the individual, who is the intern, approaches the industry or the company for internship, the company may not be interested in the individual. And for that matter, they don't also want to turn back the individual. They can't accept the individual to play some minor roles in the company. But where it is solicited, where the company or the industry is the one requesting for interns, that is where there is practical, in-depth knowledge impacting on skills transfer. This is where the company actually needs the intern to use them day and night. So to do internship, you must first of all ask if your skills and experience are required by the company that is looking at or that you are going to do the internship.
Okay.
So I would not just blame the industry players for usually sending people to do to buy some things for them. But just be cool on the job. Learn a bit. There are certain things that you may take, whether intrinsic or not. And they all count when we are evaluating the individual. But for me, all the interns under me, I usually involve them both theoretical and practical on the field, and whatever guidance and counseling and coaching that I need to give, I do it. The universities really run some forms of internship. For example, the University for Development Studies has this third trimester field practical program that students go out to the field to learn how research is done and to understand how communities live their lives, and they live with the communities to also experience the daily lives of these people. All these things count, and they are part of the internship programs that builds your capacity.
Okay.
Right.
Very well. So I would like to remind you that for our in-studio audience, you have the opportunity to be asking questions. So if you have questions surrounding internship and then buying and then doing accounting, please just jot it down. We'll give you the opportunity so that you can come and ask questions based on the barometer and what we've heard so far. And I'm very glad because you are all young people like me. I've not seen any old person here. We are all very young. Even those who are physically not young are spiritually young. And so it's a conversation for all of us. But quickly, let me wrap up with you on this one, John. Now, I heard and saw in the barometer, your microphones are working, don't worry, that there's a connection in terms of access to education, quality education, and social connection. And I'm asking myself, what is happening here? Do I need social capital to be able to get access to quality education?
Okay, thank you very much. A lot of the youth that we engaged during the data collection phase expressed that the health training institutions, for instance, before you could get in there, despite that you might have good requirements that qualify you to be admitted into the school, you need what they call protocol to also make it to the school. That is how they expect that you need that social connection to be able to get into the school and have access to the education that you desire.
So that's the protocol system?
Yes.
So if you want to go to my alma mater, Presec, for instance, you can get 8 A's But then if you don't have, because a lot of people are getting the 8As, by the way.
Yes.
So you need to know someone.
Someone.
And that is also a huge barrier.
True.
Well, guys, it's time for you to now pose your questions. So please, the microphones have been set in the median, and you can just get there, let us know your name, and then pose your question. And if you need a specific person on the panel to answer your question, we are glad to have that person also do that for you. So please, we're ready for our question and answer segment. So you can just make your way to the microphone, and then you can pose questions. And as youth, one of the things that we do is to ask questions. So please, if you are here and you have any question whatsoever for any of my panel members, would please be glad to have those questions. Start with your name and then your question.
My name is Faithfulness.
Your name is?
Faithfulness.
Faithfulness.
Yes.
Okay, I'm very faithful.
Okay.
Your question.
I would like to ask the doctors on the panel. So, doing the research on field, I found so many youths in my position. We are talking about education, but not all the youths have the capacity to complete. Some of us have dropped out of school, but yet they are very brilliant, and they are even more hardworking than those who have completed. So I want to find out from them, are there opportunities you give out, since you are speaking about their education and their future, and in this instance, they are not able to complete their education, but then they are aspiring for a good future and they are very good at whatever they do. Are there opportunities that are given out to such young youths? I want to find out.
Okay, can we have two more so that we can come to the panel for questions? Thank you. Please make your way to the microphone. Ladies first.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Liana. Okay, so I would say I was very privileged, and curiosity really drove me when I gained admission into doing my undergrad. So you would see that when it comes to orientation period, you won't find one particular person actually highlighting that maybe at the end of a semester, you're supposed to go through internship or the other programs that will build your capacity. But if you're not curious, you won't be able to fish out these information. Most institutions are very keen on telling you, oh, we have this department, you'll be running this program for this period, but will not really highlight and hamper on internship programs unless you want to push. And I said I was fortunate because I had other people that were in those places and I really wanted things for myself. So, I mean, I have all this experience and I was able to learn certain things because I drove and I pushed myself. So I will just plead with institutions that on their orientation period or panel, they should hamper and inform certain things, because some websites won't find this information there unless you push.
Right. Thank you very much, Liana. One more. Okay, Nana has a question.
It's not a question, but just to answer some of the questions.
Fantastic.
One is about teachers accepting postings to hard to reach areas or rural areas. Now, what is happening is that when you accept posting to hard to reach area or the rural area, it goes with what? Allowance. It goes with allowance. And then two, what is happening now is that GES, they open the portal for teachers to apply for teaching. What we did was that these rural areas where they need the teachers is what we put there. You will not see Achimota, you will not see, so it's self what? Posting. So you yourself what? Look through and then you apply. You want to work, you want to work, and we open it for you. So it's not a matter of you are going to get Achimota or you are going to get, so that is one of the strategies that we are using now. And then the sending of interns to go and buy this thing. One thing for me is that, you are coming to my office, I have documents, I have money to play in your custody. So what I first do is trust. For me to trust you, it's not something regular. I'll send you to go and buy something for me, maybe one or two. You go, you come, you don't give me the change. You go again, you come, and then you don't give me the change. I will sit you down and then tell you that that is one of the core values that any work that you go and do. So it's not a matter of sending them to go and buy something for you. So that is it. And then experience. I think we are hammering on inter. But one of my lessons is that our students should also accept voluntary work, where you can gain a lot of experience. Don't look at the money. Don't look at what you are going to get. But in case there's any voluntary work in your community, join them. You will gain the experience also there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nana Bafurwa. Please, let's do it better for him. And we'll take the final one so that we can come to our panel for responses.
Hello and good morning. My name is Yusuf Caesar. So I was sitting down and they mentioned that education is retrogressive, yet it's preparing people for the future. It was stated from the research that participants said education is retrogressive, but it prepares them for the future. So I asked myself, why would something that is retrogressive prepare you for the future? Then it fit my mind back to a mantra we've been told while growing up, that education is the key to success. But when you look at successful people today, we are only referring to those who have money. So what exactly do you mean by success here? I think if the youth understands what success means with regards to education, you're able to know whether it's really regressive or moving us forward. So I would be glad if the panel here can explain to the youth what exactly do you mean or how education is meant by the statement, education is the key to success. Thank you.
Very well, thank you so much. So let me come to my panel quickly. The first question was directed to the doctors on the panel. So the three of us, we are out. So, and it has to do with basically opportunities for people who are brilliant but needy, and then how they can get incorporated into the system.
All right, so I will attempt to respond to that question. Faithfulness. It is true indeed that socio-cultural factors account for dropout, and other reasons, other factors to account for out-of-school children or population. According to the Ghana Housing and Population Census survey by the Ghana Statistical Service, about 1.4 million children are out of school. And indeed, due to this, several innovations and initiatives have been run by the government of Ghana and civil societies, including what we call education innovators, like Africates, Gilbert, School for Life, and the others. They have come out with an initiative called Accelerated Education Program. In our context, it is also known as Complementary Basic Education, which has been spearheaded by a department or an agency called the Complementary Education Agency. It is an agency under the Ministry of Education that is responsible for overseeing the integration of people who have dropped out due to various reasons, like I mentioned, the socio-cultural, back into the formal education system. Education innovators like African School for Life also have various mechanisms and strategies that they employ to bring back children into the formal system. Some of these initiatives include sponsorship. They give sponsorship to people who have dropped out, especially those who are classified as being the main contributors of the food basket of their family. So if a child drops out of school, perhaps due to the fact that he is the main contributor, so he needs to drop out and migrate to work on farms or in the mining area to support the family, the education innovators have devised various mechanisms to support such individuals to go back to school. One practical example is the LEAP program that the government of Ghana is running. As one of a precondition to qualify for this is that you enroll back your child into the formal system. If you meet that criteria and you are classified as part of those from the poorest wealth quintile, then the government accepts you and give you that LEAP grant.
Okay.
And those are some of the initiatives that the government runs to bring back children who have dropped out school. The last one I want to say is that the district assemblies, together with some philanthropists, have always also given out some forms of scholarships for those who are out of school. It may not be enough, but of course, it is also contributing in one way or the other in getting these children back to school. There are various forms of assistance that the individual can solicit at the local level or even at the central government level.
Right.
Yes. So thank you so much for your question.
So the next question has to do with why we do not have issues of voluntary work and internships being hammered during orientation. So if the student does not forcefully find out for him or herself, then the person will just go through school without necessarily focusing on those. And that's to the friends in our academia. Anyone can take it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I think the narrative is changing. So in my university, for example, we have a whole unit called Career and Guidance.
Okay.
Right.
And is it effective?
It's very effective. The only thing is that the students are not utilizing it. So on my status every day, I post it there. Make sure you pass through the Career Guidance before you leave KNUST. Make sure you pass there. So what they are doing is that during orientation, the Career and Guidance people come around and then tries to let the student know that this office is there for you. The orientation may not be enough to really communicate the whole idea of emphasizing internship. But if you go there, there is a whole program that they can take you through in terms of what you need to do whilst you are studying to be able to gain practical experience as part of your education. So the narrative for me is gradually changing, and these opportunities for internship and volunteerism is coming up. And there are also programs that are run by some departments. So, for example, there will be something on how to prepare a CV. These things are happening on campuses. But you organize these seminars, and a few people will come. You don't know why. Some of them may think that it's a waste of their time, or maybe they know how to do it. But I'm thinking that, like he said, there's a supply and demand side. Young people also need to be encouraged to really make sure that they utilize some of these opportunities.
Okay. And so, just on the top of my head, I'm also looking at, instead of organizing a full program, why not maybe 5 minutes for the lecture period when all the students cannot say they won't come? They're already there. Then you push it to them small, you understand? But I think we can work around it going forward.
Yeah, I mean, some lecturers do that. I mean, for instance, when I'm teaching, I talk about everything with my students.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, even how to eat well, nutrition, I talk to them about. And I always encourage them that as much as possible, learn everything. You don't have to be doing engineering. Okay, I'm doing engineering. Anything about, soft skills. For me, I'm an engineer.
Right.
Please, no. Learn everything as much as you have access to internet. Gone were the days where, it was really difficult accessing information.
Right.
But you see young people with their phones and Snapchat, and you see them, trying to... Those are the things they focus their data bundles on, but not really to learn something that can improve upon themselves.
Okay.
There was this young girl in my class who told me that she has never heard of emergency contraceptive before. I'm not saying that, and I told her, I'm not saying know it and go and use it. But you just know it.
And keep it.
A friend may be in a situation, somebody has been raped or something has happened, and you are aware of emergency contraceptive, you want to prevent pregnancy. You may recommend it and then perhaps, not. But they are just focused on, because our exam, the school curriculum is designed in such a way that you are only assessed based on exam. They don't want to go, contrary to what, they are even giving during lectures. But the narrative is changing.
The narrative is changing. I didn't like the fact that when we were talking about talking to your students about nutrition, you were looking at my stomach. I felt it felt some way for me. I mean, I'll try. But there's another question that has to do with the concern I raised earlier. The fact that, some of the respondents said that the education that is offered is retrogressive. Yet it leads them in the way of success. And then my very good friend was asking, do we have a proper definition of success even in that context when it comes to education? Are they aware? Let me come to you, John, then I'll pick your thoughts to Doreen.
Okay, thank you very much. I think most of the youth that we interviewed answered that in preparation for their future, the education didn't actually prepare them well, and more so for the job market. But they appreciate the fact that it has kept them on a pedestal that they can find out what is good and what is relatively not good, and they can begin to make informed decisions from then. But then they feel that that is a late time to realize these. They should have been, all of that should have been incorporated in the learning process, and they would have been better individuals as of when we interviewed them.
Okay, Doreen.
I think my thoughts actually resonate with what John said. Looking at the report, maybe some of us have not seen the reports, but I've had the privilege of reading the report. So in terms of retrogression, the main pointers as to the people that were interviewed were that, let's take a look at the curriculum as we've spoken about. How the curriculum is structured, like the doctor was mentioning that it's exam focused other than practically focused. That was one of the determinants as to why it's retrogressing. Okay. Then people also in the rural areas, especially, were talking about access to infrastructure and then teaching and learning materials. Because you would expect that, let's say 10 years ago, if I was living in a community, a rural community, that at a time when, let's say my uncle, who is now 40 years, let's say 25, let's say at the time that he was 15, he didn't have access to quality education in terms of having a good classroom to study, books, teaching and learning materials, computer science, and all that. As I have now grown to also be 15, as in 10 years later, I'm expecting that in my community, these things should have improved. So it's retrogressing because you realize when you still go to that same community, the things my uncle didn't have, I still don't have it. So no progress has been made. Even though there is access to education now in terms of free SHS, that is taking care of tuition. When you are in school, we all attest to the fact that feeding fee alone is like 3 times the amount you pay for tuition. Books that you need to buy, school uniform, all the other things, you still don't have them, even though the teacher is there. But if you don't eat, you cannot focus in class. So that's where the retrogression comes from. Okay. So it's the retrogression was about specific pointers. So infrastructure, even though there's access, but financial constraints, which the economy hasn't improved, so that hasn't also improved. But then the people who were able to get access or had the privilege of maybe moving from the basic school to the SHS, more so, let's say, tertiary, they were optimistic about the future because even though maybe the system did not put things in place so that I will get teaching and learning materials, maybe some way, somehow, my family was able to support me with that. Yeah. So I've been able to move a step higher. Okay. One thing that my father was always telling me when I go to school is that when you go to school, make sure you get classmates. Okay. Social connection. If you don't move up the ladder, you won't meet people. If the people here, it's not everyone who knows me. If people didn't come from their rooms or their houses to this place, they wouldn't meet me. Yeah. In the same way, as you move a step higher, you meet different people who, in one way or the other, will influence your life. Let me use myself as an example.
As you wrap up for me.
Yes.
Because Doreen feels like she doesn't want to talk, but when she starts, she doesn't finish. Yeah. So use yourself as an example in 30 seconds.
Myself as an example, I was in University of Cape Coast. And then it only took one encounter with an executive director that I'm working with at School Farms on social media. He was doing a fundraising exercise. I felt it was something I could help with, so I inboxed him. And it's been more than 5 years now. It was through him that I got to know about YOTA. Okay. And the experiences I've got with YOTA has also exposed me to other people. So it's not just because I went to school to study biomedical science. Right. It is because I was in that space where I can interact with others.
Okay, so that's where the progress comes
optimism
in. Oh, okay.
For the
I would like to add on
briefly, so we can take more questions. Else, the people here will be angry with me. I can see the anger on their faces already.
Yes, so just a quick one. Even though the report indicates that about 40 to 45% of the respondents indicate their perception regarding the retrogression nature of our educational system, the same cohort of respondents recognize that the Education Strategy Plan 2018-2030 and other initiatives by the government, including the teacher licensure, the teacher professional development initiatives that have been put in place, provide impetus that will enable them see education as a vehicle for them to realize their dreams. That is something that I just wanted to add to it.
Very well. Thank you so much. So we'll take the next batch of questions. Emmanuel Osayado is on Facebook. He says, my question is, in what ways can we, the youth, amplify our voices in decision-making processes that affect our education and career? And that's one of the things we'll be looking at. Okay, so there's a long commendation for the YOTA team on Facebook. So let's take our next batch of questions, please.
Comfort.
Okay.
So during our research exercise, there's this boy I got to interview him. So I was asking him a question. Then I got to ask him your level of education. Then his colleague sitting by him laughed. You don't go to school always. You don't even know the class he is. Then I asked him why. That I will walk for a distance. I'll go to school. My teacher will not come. So he feels stress. So my question here is, after the teachers has been posted to the rural communities, how is the supervision? Do they supervise them regularly? Okay. So I think that's why some students are dropping out.
Okay.
Thank you.
And please, let's keep our questions very snappy. We have very limited time. So just straight to the point so that we can get responses and move on. Please.
Okay, so my name is Nelson, and I have a very short question.
Thank you.
So ask 90% of university graduates, and they'll tell you how eager they are to run out of this country after graduation. So the question is, how do we change the perception of young people that success is only achievable abroad and instead highlight the opportunities here in Ghana? Thank you.
Okay, so the Jakpa movement. Okay, quickly.
So my name is Mahi Barakisu, and then FOSDA also organized this same kind of youth voices, the Ghana Youth Manifesto, where I was also one of the people that went to the field. And I don't know whether my colleagues also had the same experience. When you go to the field, most of the times, young people are not ready to give responses because they feel like the same thing has been done over and over, but nothing has been done about it. So I want to ask that after this engagement, this program, what is the way forward?
All right, thank you very much. Next question, please, quickly.
My name is Adam Sedu.
Right.
Please, I want to know from the researchers, looking at the TVET system in Ghana, were they able to find out some of the gaps created in the labor market and the training offered by the TVET institutions? And how do we fill those gaps? Are there any possible policies that we can put in place that can fill those gaps?
Thank you very much. Yes, Aladin.
Hello, my name is Emilia Theodora Forsen. So before coming here, I read a bit about YOTA, and then I found out about what they do. So until in recent times, we've been hearing youth voices, youth in policy making and all. I think there is a gap when it comes to capacity building of the youth in policy making. Migrating from private sector, for me, to government sector, I had the privilege of knowing how the local governance is run. So if there could be more capacity building in this regard, it would help us. And secondly, I know I can attest to the fact that our academic board, they are doing their best. I don't think education is retrogressing with respect to the curriculum or the content. I don't think anything has changed, but I think it's more of our attitude. In project management, we say competence is equal to attitude and skills.
Right.
Our attitude is not good. Our attitude to work needs to be worked on. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have one or two more quickly, please.
My name is Elikple. My question goes to Nana. He made the assertion that when they post people to the rural areas, there's an allowance that goes with it. My question is, how practical is those allowance? Because if you relate it to the question the lady has said, that the guy said, my teacher will not come to school. If the release of those allowances goes to them on time, I don't think he or she will not go.
Okay.
So how practical is that?
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next one, please.
My name is Abdelhamid Sokun. I have, is it a question actually? I'm not sure.
Hey, Hamid,
But-
be sure. Because we don't have time at all.
I'm glad when Doreen spoke of soft skills and that of digital skills, which I think Utah is championing. That's perfectly right. But now going forward, I have been on the field, and then issues raised on the field has to do with what? The digital divide we are having, that is, be it from rural and urban or wherever it is. And now, one of the factors contributing to this digital divide has to do with what? Limited internet accessibility and that of what? High data cost.
Right.
It will fascinate you that Ghana is one of the third cheapest, with regard to data cost in the whole sub-Saharan African region. Yet, data is what? Is costly.
Okay.
Why is it so?
So what's the question, Hamid?
So, I'm still going,
I beg,
actually.
I beg, get there for
Sure.
me. Don't be on
So,
the way.
it has to do with the tax components on what? On the data cost.
Right.
So, I'm using this forum, this platform, to I don't know how to put it.
We all
But then,
agree, and
yeah,
the
with,
data cost should come down.
Exactly.
Thank you.
As stakeholders,
Thank
we
you.
want to speak to government at least. They should do something about this.
Okay, thank you very much. The last question.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Solomon. I work with FOSDA. So in the presentation, you made us aware that you had 5%, almost 5% of the respondents have not been to school. So I want to find out to what extent
Right.
does the recommendations cover them? Because most of the recommendations I see focuses on the 95%.
Okay.
The second one has to do with the PWDs. I didn't see anything about person with disability. So how
Okay.
inclusive is the study?
Right. Solomon,
The last
how many-
one,
hey, you have another one.
The last one has to
We
do
are
with,
really hard-pressed.
with the internship. I think we need to have a conversation on how government and the private sector can have an internship plan.
Okay.
So that when you go to intern, you don't waste your time here and there because the Wachi, I bought it.
You bought it?
I bought a lot.
Thank you. Then your
Thank
accounting
you.
is very good. So we are picking the final one because you talked about PWDs. Rama, please, you have a question. Please give me one question, very short.
All right, thank you so much. So, following the conversation, I have come to the realization that, yes, everybody says internship is very necessary for us to be able to gain the needed experiences in life. But here is the case. We find ourselves in a country that is still leaving some people behind.
Right.
I have a lot of examples.
I beg
where
you.
even the government institutions.
Rama, I beg you, just go to the question for me, please.
Yes,
I beg you. We don't have time,
All right.
unfortunately.
So even national service persons who are persons with disability will be posted to government institutions, and these institutions will reject them. Oh, how can you work? The only thing I know is persons with disability are the roadside begging.
Okay.
And so what are we saying? What do we do? What are we not doing right? What will we encourage?
Right.
Such that when persons with disabilities are being posted or have the interest in doing internships, they will be given the opportunities with the assistance needed to also enable them gain the experience needed in life.
Okay, Rama, thank you so much. Please, let's clap for all those who ask questions. And unfortunately, because we are far, I wish we had like an hour more. We could have digested a lot. So the answers, those of you who have not shared the live stream yet, I'm wondering what you are waiting for. I beg you, go and share it for us. And the answers, we are going to leave all the answers there. So my panelists, you have 10 seconds. That will make a minute, including me. Don't take my own. So 10 seconds, let's wrap it up.
All right, thank you very much. So I like to...
Nana.
The use of the word persons with disability.
Right.
These days, we don't go by that.
Yes.
So please, we are all persons with
disability.
Different what? Abilities.
Abilities, okay.
Different abilities.
Right.
You are a person with what? Different abilities.
Ability.
And I'm also a person of different abilities. So the use of that word,
Fantastic.
we should be very careful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nana. And I'm sure the answer to the motivation for the teachers we'll get your answer and put it online.
It's very practical.
Okay.
It's very practical.
Right.
I went to a place in Lambusi. They call the place Kani.
Okay.
A village. I met two guys over there, one from Akropon, one from Brekum. Two guys from Akropon and Brekum.
Right,
and it's because of this allowance, that's why they are accepted. Right? So it's very practical.
All right. All right. So, unfortunately, we give them our time because we've spoken, so we allow them to also speak. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Please, let's give it up for them. Amazing panelists. And this is where we'll draw the curtains on this segment for today's occasion. But I would like to let you know that education is not just an addition to the pill. It's actually some fire that has been ignited in all of us and let our collective fires burn for the betterment of the nation. My name is Joshua Kujomensa. Thank you so much for having me. And I think I can now hand over to Osofo. Aha.
Can we do it again for them? They've done so well. Thank you very much, our panelists. Please, you can go backstage. Or do it one more time for them. They've done so well. Listen, I think if we gave ourselves the whole day, we'll still have the conversation. And there are audience online who are asking questions. And so the conversation has begun. And this is where we now gather and look at what are the issues that have come up from this dialogue and how can we take the dialogue forward as well. And so on our platform, we want to continue to engage, ask the questions, let's put the responses together and we are able to go forward. And I believe with Nana Bafwe, who are here being a champion in the Yes Pact and Yes Pact members who are into the policy field, would be able to respond to practical questions that we have here. And so it's been really, really entertaining and also informative for me as well. We don't have much time, and so we're about to unveil, as you can see, the report. But before we go on to the unveiling, we have a keynote speaker who has been a friend of Yota for a while. Ever since I've been with Yota, he's been a friend with Yota. His name is Dr. Dabisaki Mark Ikemanjima. He is a program officer from Ford Foundation. He's our keynote speaker. He will speak and then launch the Youth Barometer report for us. Please put your hands together for Dabisaki as he comes.
Good morning, everybody. Yota people have decided to promote me to doctor today. I would take it. So this has been a very interesting morning and early afternoon conversation, and I don't want to keep you here for longer than necessary. So I'm going to try and keep my intervention as short as possible. I got here late last night and read the report, and I want to batch my intervention in three kind of broad topics. So I will talk about agency, voice, and aspirations, and I think these are topics that are all covered in the report, and these topics have also been talked about extensively this morning and early afternoon. So let me start with the topic of agency. You know, the thing that I like very much about this, the process of developing this report, is the fact that it involves young researchers. You know, I think the movement towards including young people as researchers in the design of studies, collection of data, and also increasingly in the analysis of presentation of reports from studies, is being practiced, you know, in many places around the world. So it was really good to see this in the report. And I think in some sense it's a recognition of the capacity of young people to be participants or equal participants in these kinds of processes. The second thing that I wanted to note with regard to agency is this point about the focus on the future. And I think there was a lot of talk here, you know, in terms of like how young people think about the future and whether they feel hopeful about the future. This came through in the report. And there are two things that I would say about that. The first is just the process recognizing that young people have the capacity to imagine and articulate what they think the future should look like for themselves and for the country. And I will talk a little bit about collective aspirations later on in my intervention. Many things were said here this morning, and I want to just talk a little bit about this notion of cultural capital. I think it touches on the points that were made about internships, the nature of internships, volunteering, the nature of volunteering. And just to say that, you know, from a practical perspective, there are many young people for whom volunteering is not an easy option. You know, if you're from a family where you have to basically sell bread or, you know, whatever to be able to pay your fees or do something, I think internships or volunteering along the lines of your educational studies, it's not necessarily practical. It's a good thing to do, but it's probably not the easiest option, especially if it's unpaid. So just to say that, you know, for most young people, that's not an easy choice. And I refer to cultural capital just because for some people, the level of their imagination does not extend beyond the possibilities in their own lives. You know, if you're from a certain economic background, I think the chances are you would only be thinking about your life up to the limit that your current life allows you. And so big things like trying to work in a big establishment, UN, whatever, it may be stated as a wish list, but often, you know, when people apply themselves, they would just focus on what they see within the realm of possibilities for them. So I think that in thinking about young people's aspirations and whatnot, it would be useful to actually keep this in mind. The last point that I would make about about agency is this piece around the role that the young researchers play. So I noted that, you know, the lead researchers are senior people from university, and all the young researchers are data collection people. It seems very extractive and utilitarian, and I think that for future studies like this, I would, you know, encourage Yota and whoever else to really look at young people as co-leads, so that it doesn't seem like they're just playing the role of running errands. You know, back to this thing about doing internship and running errands, that they're playing a leadership role in the design, collection of data, analysis, and presentation of the outcomes of the study, so that they're not here saying, you know, this was a life-changing opportunity for me just because, but that they're talking about the findings of the study because they are an integral part of the process. So that's all about agency. Actually, one more thing, which is that when I was reading the report, I took a look at your national youth policy for 2022 to 2032 and found that, you know, the way that the report has been developed really is consistent. Okay. It's consistent with some of the conceptual framings within the youth policy that talk about empowerment and mainstreaming and participation. It's a very long document. It's 105 pages, but it's an interesting document. So if you have time, you know, and interest, you should definitely read the youth policy. Second point that I would make is about voice. You know, and I think this has come up in some of what I've said earlier, that the report is intentional about capturing young people's aspirations, perceptions, and concerns. I think those were the three kind of keywords that the report used. And this is important because often young people's voices, don't get included or heard even in the design of education policy. Like you cannot think about education policy without thinking about young people. So it's interesting that the report, makes this effort to really capture what young people think about the nature of education in Ghana. I think the second point to make is that there was some reference to youth manifestos, and I particularly liked that because youth manifestos increasingly connect with this idea of young people's participation in decision-making processes, particularly when it relates to electoral political seasons like you are right now in this country. It's a nice way for young people to aggregate their collective thoughts about their lives, how they see the future of the country, what their expectations are from political leaders. And so this notion of a manifesto of young people is equivalent to a citizen's manifesto and an expression of their expectations from political leaders. In my previous life, one of the things that I wanted to do was to look at how the things that young people articulate in a political season aligns with what is included in political party manifestos. And in fact, in one of those instances, in 2015, there were many consistencies in terms of the broad topics, what I call the headlines. So young people want more investment in education, et cetera, but the nuances of those were very different. For example, in that particular instance, young people did not want new universities, but political parties were all saying, we will build new universities. And this is an important distinction, and I think that youth manifestos could be really interesting ways to help to develop the fine lines and things that young people want as compared to what political parties want. And researchers like Emmanuel and others could really look at whether there are differences between these and what political parties or political leaders should prioritize after the elections are over. And then last thing that I would say on voice is the thing that caught my attention in the report is this thing about theory-focused education, and I think it was talked a lot about here. I'll keep this short. I think that there is a place for practical education that prepares people for work. And I also worry at the same time that we talk about education almost like education is exclusively about preparing people for work. And I often wonder if there are people who want to go to school because they're interested in knowledge for its own sake. And if so, where do we situate those people in our conversations about the relationship between education and work? Is it important to recognize that there are categories of young people who want to go to school because they're interested in knowledge, they want to learn, they want to grow their knowledge about the world, but they're not necessarily thinking about education relative to work? Secondly, I want to talk about this concept of soft skills because it's come up a few times. I personally think that soft skills are not necessarily about curriculum. I think they're about two things. One, they're about pedagogy, and two, they're about design. With regard to pedagogy, I think it's essentially how you teach. It's like you could use group work, you could use presentations, you could use take-home assignments, what have you, as ways of teaching, students. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific class in which you say, now you have to learn how to communicate. But it's really how you deliver your lectures. And I think somebody was talking about schools outside of Ghana. I imagine that, in some universities outside of Ghana and elsewhere, these are the ways in which classes are delivered. On design, I would say a little bit at the end about, one of my recommendations would be about design. We need to be building schools with digital skills in mind, so that digital skills are not an afterthought, that we are building schools that, for example, have computer labs integrated in them, that have computers in classrooms, and all the necessary security architecture that we need to build around these. Because if we do that, then it becomes a natural part of the learning ecosystem, and it's not seen as something that is an add-on, but something that young, particularly children, are socialized into once they get into school. Third and last point would be aspirations. In the report, I saw this expression of individual and collective aspirations. So let me start with individual aspirations. I think a lot of students, a lot of the participants seem to be concerned about themselves and their future and what the future means for them and whether the education system is really tailored to prepare them for the future. At the same time, it did seem like there was some references to collective aspirations in terms of this thinking about what would the future look like for our country. And when I came and the youth anthem was being sung, I was laughing because I was thinking to myself, why do these anthems always have to call young people to do something? Why, can't they focus on something else? Because our former anthem in Nigeria was also about calling on the youth to do something for the country. But I think it's interesting because young people in the report seemed to be collectively concerned about the future of the country. And, as was discussed here, some people say, we're confident that the way things are going, things will be better in the future. And that particular piece struck me because I wonder if it's just what is called adaptation in social science research, that people are so tired of how things are going that they're just like, well, we take what we see. Or people have misplaced optimism, because of religion, because they don't want to say bad things. But this idea of a collective aspiration, thinking about what would the country be like in the future, it's interesting for me because I think it's a really good place to build out work that engages young people in imagining the future. And agencies, like if you have them here, National Planning Commission, if it exists, can be the agencies that really dig into how are young people imagining the future in the context of economics and what have you, but also in the context of emerging conversations like climate change. And how do we involve young people in crafting and working towards that future? So this notion of individual versus collective aspirations came through in the report, and I found it to be actually quite fascinating. Because of time, I would just go to my last point on aspirations, which is that while the report focused on educational and employment aspirations, I would have hoped that there would have been some reflection on broader aspirations. So, I did research on aspirations now almost 10 years ago. Can you imagine? And part of the things that the young people were saying were things like they want their material conditions to improve. And I think most of what we're saying about the link between education and employment is essentially about improvements in material conditions. A lot of those goals and aspirations were geared towards material conditions. And so even if our focus is education, I think it's hard to do that without reflecting on people's material conditions. The other ones are relational goals, achievement goals related to education, and this notion of status goals. So, people talk about Maslow's hierarchy and look at what you need at the base level and what you need once you go beyond the base level. And so these status goals really look at things like owning a car, being a particular type of person in society. I feel like capturing these broader dimensions of aspirations would have been actually quite useful in connecting to the topic on youth participation in decision making. Actually, one last thing about aspirations, a sidebar, which is the role of guidance and counseling. It was mentioned briefly this morning, and I feel like it would be a missed opportunity to not talk about what is the role of guidance and counseling or guidance counselors in schools to really support our young people, both in terms of supporting them with the practical things like CV writing and what have you. I think in many universities now, guidance and counseling is integrated within the dean of students so that it includes both support for the individual and actually more structured things like academic support that doesn't necessarily focus on their psychosocial needs, but actually looks at helping them to prepare for exams, helping them with assignments and things like that. If we can do guidance counseling support well in secondary and higher education in this country and elsewhere in the region, we would be able to make some progress in supporting young people to prepare towards achieving their desired future. Last point, I'd like to end with a couple of recommendations for things that may be useful to just think about. The first I would talk about is this idea of a Youth Futures Fund. So, Eric mentioned that I work at the Ford Foundation. And one of the things that I've been involved with developing is this idea of a Futures Fund for young people. In our case, the fund is focused on youth civic engagement and political participation. But actually, the fund that I'm talking about here, it's of the nature of sovereign wealth funds, something that is specifically focused on young people, and maybe I would say children, that looks at how do you generate revenue from your oil savings, from your natural resources savings, basically from your country's revenue to set aside as a futures fund to support young people. Whether they're trying to set up jobs, a lot of people, the references here talked about young people wanting to go into entrepreneurship and things like that. I sense that a futures fund can be a way to be able to do that. And so for YOTA and others involved in advocacy, perhaps one big push can be to encourage the government and donors working on youth to think about this idea of a futures fund that will be an investment pool that is set aside to support young people now and in the future. Second recommendation would be the point that has been made by other people, centering young people in all public policies. There is almost no public policy that does not include some reference or implications for young people. And so really thinking about youth in the way that the youth policy envisages from a mainstreaming perspective and applying all of the aspirational points that have been made in the youth policy in all 105 pages in the different policies that are designed by government ministries, because the youth policy is a standalone document, and often, government departments don't necessarily reference it. So if in your energy policy, agric policy, social welfare policy, what have you, you can take a specific lens, to apply this mainstream perspective in youth, of youth in those policies. That would go a long way in centering youth issues and youth voices. The third recommendation, and maybe the last that I would make, is to look at how can you support young people to be confident about the future. So a couple of things that I would mention. One is social housing in urban areas. Many young people who move to Accra and big cities like Accra struggle with house rent. How can the government support young people, especially young people who are trying to start families? Who would be two people who can't live in one room, face me, I face you? How can the government support them to find housing in urban areas? I think this can be a big priority, and it may be a quick win for almost any government. The second is this idea of social grants for young people that are most at risk. Young persons with disabilities, young people who become mothers, unexpectedly. How can they be supported through a social grants system? And we have good examples. South Africa has a really good example of how social grants can be used to support young mothers, and maybe that's a model that some of our countries can look at. The third is thinking about educational pathways for gifted children. Increasingly, this idea of supporting gifted children who don't necessarily need to go through the traditional 6 years of primary school or what have you, but can have specific pathways because they're highly talented, highly intellectual, and can go through a more accelerated path. I think it would be good to rethink and reintegrate, that piece in the way that education is delivered. Recommendation for YOTA would be maybe to think about a standard set of indicators that capture all aspects of young people's lives that you can then socialize with government departments that are responsible for those areas. So if you were thinking about youth in relation to agric, what are the indicators that you'll be looking at? Those could be a standard set that would be useful for a barometer. And so even if you take sector by sector in each year, you would have a standardized set of indicators. In fact, I would even say go as far as creating an index so that every year, if you were looking at regional development for young people, you could have a thematic lens, but at the same time, you would have a standardized, index that looks at how youth are performing across the different regions of Ghana. Last point that I would make is about this question of design. I want to reemphasize that digital skills should not be an afterthought. Somebody was talking about young people and mobile phones today. I think that digital skills should be native to how we design schools. So, Deputy Director from the Ministry of Education, other people, so not just the education people, but also architects who design buildings and design school buildings should really be thinking about how can digital skills be native to how buildings are designed. In the same way as we think about designing buildings that accommodate and enable access for persons with disability, we need to be thinking about designing buildings for schools in a way that makes digital skills native to them. Thank you for listening to me. I know I've been going on and on for a very long time, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to say a few words. And I just wanted to remark one thing. I promise that's the last thing that I would say. Young persons with disability should really be at the center of everything that we do. I work on, part of my job includes some focus on preventing gender-based violence. And every time we have to think about that, persons with disability experience double jeopardy because there is a stigma already associated with having a disability. At the same time, women who have disabilities, experience, higher levels of violence. And so we always have to think about how do we address the specific needs of women and girls with disabilities in the context of preventing gender-based violence. In the same way, youth policies, youth programs, and processes need to be intentional about thinking about young people who have disabilities because it's important to integrate them as central to the work that we all do. So that would be my last word. And then I would like to invite a couple of people to join me. I think it's there. All the youth researchers who were up here just now, if you can join me there. Deputy Director, if you don't mind, if you can also join us there. And Manya Sulemana, if you can also join us there as we launch the report. So forgive me if I don't do it well. I don't have plenty of experience launching reports, but I think maybe we can hold copies. And Deputy Director, do you want to launch?
To build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65. Co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate. High-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others. Special packages for the most sought after entrepreneurship skills, employability skills, digital skills, life skills, and financial literacy for individuals and organizations. The Skills Hub is open to every young person who wants to land their dream jobs or contracts. It's time to take charge of your future. Now visit the Skills Hub at Toyota Building at American House Traffic Lights on the Labar Leishi Road, East Lagos. The all-new multipurpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth Employment Services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65. Co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate. High-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others. Special packages for the most sought after.
A lot has been said about youth today, youth voice. But my puzzle is that after we have amplified at the youth voice, what next? All that I'm saying is that we need to find a way that we can pursue those in power to act on the voice. There's one thing, voicing your concern, and there's one thing, acting on it. On this note, as the Director for Pre-Tertiary Education with the Ministry of Education, I declare the Ghana Youth Barometer 2024 duly launched.
Thank you very much for the launch of the report. The youth researchers, you can take copies, 2 copies each. There will be copies available. We'll have copies online too. The QR codes there would be available for you to scan and get soft copies as well. Youth researchers, please come back. Because of time and because we want to go faster, I don't need to add to the conversation, but I'd like to invite one of our board members, in the person of Manyea, to come and give the closing remarks. So please put your hands together for one of YOTA's board members.
They didn't put their hands together.
They didn't clap well. Hey, let them clap well for you. Please do it better for Manyea.
Please do it better for me. I think from this place, I would go and edit my CV. I'll add that I'm very, very accountable and also trustworthy because the watch there we bought, and I'll do that. Today has been a very beautiful time. Like they mentioned, my name is Manyea Suleimana, and YOTA has given me the privilege to represent youth on their board of directors, and I'm so glad about it. I think the report had 3 highlights for me. They looked at the perception of young people like me on education. They looked at their preparedness for the future and also involvement in decision making. And I'm sure we wouldn't be here if not for the hard work of the lead researchers and also the youth researchers. So I want to thank everyone here, Ministry of Education representative, CDD Ghana, all institutions, our panelists, those that shared their experiences with the very, very beautiful quotes. We are so glad that you made this possible. But there was something that struck my heart so much. I am thinking about the youth development we preach every day and the economic progress of our country, looking at the disparities between the education and then the employability status of the country. If we go to school plenty, yet we don't get to be employed, I don't know where the youth development preaching sermons would lead us to, or how our country's economy will grow, since most of our people are home. Ramatu mentioned something. She said, we've been talking a lot about youth engagement and policies. All these things are on paper. What are we going to do? I want to call on all stakeholders present, including you. Now we have a document that you can make reference to. Emmanuel said, evidence-based activism. You have the data required to make the loudest noise about it. And the director representing the Ministry of Education also said, let's louden our voices with this data to reach relevant stakeholders for the change we actually want. When you pick this book and you go and sleep on it, next year we'll be here talking about the same thing. But when you add on to your voices, like the youth on board, championing advocacy, I am sure we are going to have results out of the many documents we have in our shelves. Thank you very much for spending your day with us. And we are so glad to see your beautiful faces. And we hope you will join the voices to make this report louder for us to achieve the necessary results we deserve. Thank you very much. So I'm happy to announce to you that now the Ghana Youth Barometer 2024 report is live on our website. Please put your hands together for us. We are doing so well. So you can scan the QR code and then download it alongside your hard copy. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much, all of you. And so the program has come to an end. You can scan the QR codes. I think they will make it big also on the screen. But on that side, you can see the QR codes. Please scan it, and then you'll be able to access the soft copy as well. The QR code, I'm told, is also on the T-shirts of the youth researchers on the Youth Barometer. And so as we've come to the end, as we go out, our lunch packages are out there, so we can pick our lunch packages there as well. Thank you very much. The program has come to an end. You've been a wonderful audience, both in studio and online. We really appreciate you for coming. God bless you.
For coming, and may we get back to our destination safely.
The all-new multi-purpose Skills Hub is supporting young people seeking opportunities to build their dream businesses, gain decent work, and transform their lives. The Skills Hub offers incredible services for next to nothing. These services include Youth Enterprise Services, where we support you to start, grow, and sustain their businesses. Our incubation and acceleration services come with priority access to curated library, mentoring and coaching, as well as business advisory services at the Skills Hub. Youth employment services, preparing youth for the world of work, and innovative supportive services and facilities, providing events and meeting spaces with customizable seating capacity of 5 to 65, co-working spaces for young entrepreneurs who may not have office space to operate, high-speed internet cafe, a copy center, and others, special packages for the most